Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, June the 2nd, 2016. Good to have you all here for our second show of this week. Hope your week is treating you well so far. It's in the Spotlight 411 show coming at you here on this Thursday night, our first show of June. It's one of my favorite times of year is what we're about to enter into. June, July, and August. My favorite, other than Christmas, my favorite time of year. I'm a summer kind of guy. I like the warm weather, so this is my favorite time of year here. But again, I hope your week is treating you well. We have an interesting show here tonight on this Thursday, so let me get right down to it. As always, remind you all the ways that you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. The hashtags you want to use, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag ITS5, which again is for our 5th anniversary on the podcast, or have fun creating your own hashtag ITS movies, hashtag ITS TV. You can create your own hashtag. Just don't be offensive or disrespectful or insulting. That's all we ask. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Make sure you like our fan page upon finding it. My co-host is on the line right now here. Mike, you are in the spotlight.
Hola, hello.
Hola. Okay. So we have an interesting show tonight. We're going to kind of blend something. Well, first of all, tonight is Game 1 of the NBA Finals. It does not start till 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So obviously, for the time we're on the air, and we'll probably be mostly done by that point, but in the time that we're on the air, we will give you updates on that game. Obviously, a huge, huge game. It's the finals that everybody wanted. We'll talk more about it on Tuesday, but the Cavaliers and the Warriors, both in 1 seeds, playing this finals out, both at full force, both healthy. So we're going to get what we all anticipated last year. So it should be a fun series starting tonight. So obviously, like I said, we'll keep you updated on that score once that game begins. And again, we'll talk more about the finals on Tuesday, along with how Game 7 panned out on Monday night. So there's that. But tonight, what we're going to do is Thursday. It's an entertainment night, and we'll do the usual box office beat, TV highlights. I'm going to be honest. Don't really have a lot in the way of TV highlights for tonight, because we're getting into that time now in the summer where we don't really I don't watch that much TV in the summer. Watch a lot of sports stuff. I might binge watch a couple of things I didn't get a chance to watch during the season, but really, realistically, as far as watching a lot of TV, I don't really do that. So probably won't get much out of me for the summer as far as this segment goes. But we'll do the segment nonetheless. My co-host probably can provide you with some knowledge there. Some opinion there. But we're also going to see the return tonight of the In the Spotlight film picks of the week tonight. As it looks like my co-host is off the line. Hopefully we get him back on here soon. But anyway, the film picks of the week will be back tonight after a real hiatus, because again, we take our time with the film pick stuff, because I don't like to talk about a film, even though we try to avoid spoilers as much as we can. Sometimes they do happen. I don't like to talk about a film that until I think majority of people that want to see it probably have seen it. So I try to wait out on something if we don't want. So I always try to at least wait a month after a film's been out, maybe even a little more if it's a big film. That's kind of my philosophy on it. So, but we'll have the film picks of the week return tonight, and we'll probably only talk about one film. But again, we only talk about films we recommend. So I don't really, we don't really go on and on about films that we don't recommend or anything like that. Although we might make an adjustment on that in the future. I'll talk more about that at a later date. That's a tease, I know, but got to have some teases. Keeps people interested. All right, so film picks of the week returns. Now, let me explain something to you all tonight. I've been saying all week we'll discuss entertainment news, and we will do a little bit of that here tonight. But in reality, a lot of the entertainment news that I either looked at or that I saw people asking about had to do with the box office. And we're going to do the box office beat tonight. But, I think the fact that so many people are talking about this, and the fact that I think it's something bigger than just fitting it all into the box office beat. Our box office beat's going to kind of blend in to a special segment tonight, focusing on what is becoming a little bit of a panic at the box office after what happened Memorial Day weekend. So we will talk a little bit more in depth about this paranoia, this panic that's going on in Hollywood after what happened this weekend. So, that's going to be really our entertainment news discussion, other than maybe one story. So our box office beat's going to kind of blend in with that tonight. And we're going to kind of merge those together a little bit. So, and it is a really a big topic that's kind of driving Hollywood this week. It's really funny to see all these studios going completely bonkers right now, worried about what's going to happen over the course of the summer now. But we'll talk more about that in a few moments. My co-host is back on. Obviously, you had some computer problems. And obviously, you're still having computer problems.
No, I'm on my iPhone. You're the one having problems.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
Really?
Yeah.
Because nobody's indicated that to me.
I am indicating it to you.
What am I having problems with?
You're like jumping around and you're like underwater, almost, it seems.
I'm jumping around. I am moving around.
You're
so.
like the video stream is skipping. It's not a strong stream. And it's like you sound underwater.
Well, that's not me. That's just Google.
well, technically it is you, Captain, hosting the call with your internet. By the way, I'm on my iPhone. I'm moving just fine. You're like jumping every couple seconds.
Actually, that is just the way I'm moving, dude. That is honest to God the way I'm moving.
No. No. That's not the way you usually move. That's the feed rebuffering, and you're in a totally different spot.
Well, I can't really do it.
I'm on my iPhone, so my stream is like HD clear.
Well,
I don't know why you need to see me in HD clear stream, but you do.
Well, there's really not much I can do about that because there's no features I can change on here for that. So all I can say is that Google heavily sucks right now.
Yes, it's Google's fault, most definitely.
Let me see if I can fix this here. Nope, that doesn't help. See, there's really nothing I can really do about this. This is what's frustrating about this for me, is that there's nothing I can do. There's like no features. Like at least when you're on audio, you can kind of mess with things. You really can't really do anything with this, which is kind of more than kind of. It is heavily frustrating. Let me try this. No, that doesn't help.
No, that's your UCam. Hi,
yeah, that's my UCam.
Oh no, it's you.
Oh, gee, thanks.
You're very welcome.
All right, well.
Here. On here real quick.
Okay. All right, so folks, if what he says is going on, please do let me know. There's not much I can do, unfortunately. It's just the situation that we are in. But please do let me know if what he says is going on.
I'm pretty sure in the 10 seconds I have pretty sure you just doubted.
No, I didn't doubt it. I asked for people to let me know what they're hearing and that, so I can see if it's just because sometimes it is really selective. Some people have it fine and some people don't. I found that out. Like there was that one night where we did this that I felt like the whole thing never got heard. Like remember we had like a lot of problems where like we it was similar to this where it was kind of like back and forth. We just felt like nothing was going right. And then I found out I had people tell me nothing was wrong. And then some people told me it was a train wreck. So it's weird. It's not that I doubt you. I'm pretty sure you're right. It's not like you'd waste time saying it if you weren't hearing what you were hearing or seeing what you were seeing. It's just the situation. That's all. So hopefully it works itself out throughout because I have no ideas on how to fix it. There's nothing I can really do. other than the fact that we stopped using Google, which I'm kind of toying with the idea of doing. But anyway, I'm sorry, Google. Don't be mad at me. Yeah. So.
Too late, you son of a bitch.
All right. So here's the. That's funny. Okay. I probably should keep this out. Yeah. All right. So like I said, oh, okay. Wait a minute. Well, before I get going, let me just read what this is, because one of our fans sent me a. Okay. Well, that's one in favor of. Apparently, this person can see and hear me just fine. So that's one. Okay.
Not wasting our time, whether or not I'm right or wrong.
No, it's not about. Well, no, I'm just making sure that. Honestly, that's okay. The ego in me, yes, that's truth. But also, I just got that, so I figured I should check it out before I start getting into the spiel, and then people can't hear me. Duh. Okay.
People can't hear you anyways. They're too busy. Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say it.
They're not. Look, they wouldn't be tuning in if they wanted to ignore me.
I'm also dicking around, so
yeah, you are dicking around. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so let's move on here.
Around.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna do something a little odd tonight. We're gonna start with the TV highlights and the film picks, because, like I said, the box office beat's gonna kind of bleed into the spotlight feature, the entertainment news stuff. So I want to keep that for later because that's a chunk of our show. So we're going to start off first with the TV highlights of the week, which I said this, that during the summer I'm not going to have many because, again, I don't really watch much other than sports and binge watch the occasional TV show on Netflix or something. But I have nothing. I'll take that back. I only watched one thing. That's because I had to catch up with it this week, and I watched the Gotham finale. Well, that's all I had to watch. I caught up on everything else, and you're going to talk about Person of Interest, so I really don't have to do that.
Did you see Person of Interest?
I've seen Person of Interest. Yes, Mike, it's super awesome. Yes, we all know that. And that's not me being sarcastic. I don't have to grade Person of Interest. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, and well, okay, it's better than Game of Thrones. But you know what I mean. There's certain shows.
Better than Game of Thrones.
It is better than Game of Thrones, although I got a feeling I'm gonna get a lot of mail about that. But that's what happens.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah. But anyway, I did see Person of Interest. It was good, very good, brilliant. And you should know that I like Person of Interest because it's written by Jonathan Nolan. I mean, seriously. Hello, Nolan fanboy, line one. Yeah, okay. So, yeah.
What?
Oh, actually, I take that back. There's two things I watched this week. I watched the Arrow finale. It's the first episode of Arrow I've watched in like 4 weeks. And I watched Gotham. Guess what? Gotham was better. But then again, when you look at Arrow... actually, I did watch Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, so I'll give a shout-out to... Legends of Tomorrow the last 2 episodes of the season were much better. I feel like they're finding themselves. So I'll give them credit for that. And Flash had a brilliant finale. Absolutely brilliant finale. That show finished very strong. I'm looking forward to where they're going to go next season there. Season 3. Arrow, there were parts of it I liked. The cast did, all I can say is the cast did their best. There were parts I liked. I'm avoiding spoilers here because I don't want to. Because I know a lot of people kind of did tune out when they killed off Black Canary. I know a lot of people did tune out. So in case you haven't seen it, and maybe once the anger dissipates, you decide to go back and watch it. Which I can't blame you if you don't. Believe me, can't blame you. I honestly only went back to it because I was just sitting there and nothing else was on. That's honest to God the truth. I wasn't even planning on watching it; it just happened to be on. But Arrow, there were parts of it I liked. The cast did, all I can say is the cast did their best. There were parts of it I liked. I liked aspects of the ending. I kind of like what they're doing with Oliver individually. I do not, although, again, they're linking him to a certain someone, Felicity. Oh, I'm sorry. They're linking him to a certain somebody that kind of ruins the potential of what they're doing with Oliver. So that's the problem we're at with Arrow, is that even the positives get negated by the negatives. So that's kind of significant. But anyway, I want to give Gotham credit for something, because I'll give them credit now that we've seen the whole season. I think at the very least that they were more coherent in terms of story flow. At least the whole season had a flow to it. It wasn't like stories were dropped, and I mean some characters were still dropped, like Butch and Barbara and that. But I felt like for the most part, at least they had arcs. For the first half of the season, at least they had arcs. That I appreciate that, and I also I saw a lot of people that thought last year's finale was better, and maybe it was to a degree. I like some of the things that first of all, I like what they did with Gordon this episode, because I think it means more now than what they tried to do for the last 8 episodes prior, which was kind of weird to me because it didn't seem like they wanted to fully commit to it. I like where they're going with Gordon, because I think that's the only way they can. I hinted at this last week. The only way they can redeem him. I did not care for the Fish stuff, because I don't like the fact that she's still out there, and I don't like the fact that they're making her. I honestly can already see her being next year's big bad, which doesn't work for me. Like, I don't think that was necessary. I thought bringing her back, they should have just brought. They didn't need to put her with Hugo Strange's monsters. They should have just had her show up alive. She fell into the water, no body was found. It's an easy thing to do if you're going to do it, but I'm not too crazy about that. I didn't like the fact that Penguin was almost non-existent in the finale, although I will give them credit that they fit pretty much every regular into the finale, but Tabitha, who I can live without her not being in the finale, because they had her get stabbed, so it kind of makes sense. But everybody else was in the finale, and they all had a moment. I appreciate that compared to last year. The Gordon stuff, Clayface thing actually came off better than I thought, even though it made Bullock look like an idiot. The part I liked the most, though, and I'm all for certain certain things I don't like when they take liberties with. And there's been a lot of that on this show. I like, and I don't want to spoil it, I like the idea of where they're going at the WTF ending. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I like where I think it's going. It's a liberty I can deal with. They're going to drop the ball with it anyway. I mean, so I shouldn't get my hopes up, but I like it, and I know it's going to play into the whole thing that they introduced with the certain court that's prevalent. And I know that's a nice little reference. Certain court that's prevalent in Gotham. The story that I think they're going to do is one of the stories I think actually works for Gotham under its current circumstances. It's one of the stories that I think you can get away with doing under those circumstances. Instead of rushing every single villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery to development, this is something that I think they should have been doing. So I kind of like the idea of bringing this story in, and it plays beautifully into where Bruce is right now. I think it works very, very well with the current setup. So I actually like where I think they're going. So I'll highlight. I think that was good. And they actually did something with Lucius Fox finally, which was nice. But anyway, but that's all I watched. I had nothing. There's nothing else I watched. Mike, I'm sure you have much better TV highlights. Go ahead.
I do have much better TV highlights because I watched Person of Interest.
Well, I did too.
Which was arguably the best show on television. Arguably because I want to be polite, because it just is the best show on television. And look, they got the ultimate. See, here's the thing. Audience really hasn't dropped since last year.
Mm-mm.
for a show that was one of CBS's like highest rated shows, doesn't make any sense. It's like dishonor that they're doing the show.
Right.
Because they just canceled a bunch of their like in-house shows. CBS has been making a push of non-CBS film shows anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And many people have pointed out that's kind of like poisoning the water hole a little bit. Any other shows a chance, but ones that you have. And they said, like CBS said, oh, we're not making any money on it. In the 13 slashed the budget, and they're still producing shows that are way better than what's been produced in-house at CBS. So fuck you, CBS. Being said, hey, there were 2 episodes this week. There weren't 3. There were 2. Voice kind of tied up loose end. One of the weird loose ends. In that a sequel to so-called the Voice. This one was called Subtle Voice. So it kind of revealed who the mysterious voice from season 3 was. And it kind of tied up the loose end. Plus, it kind of got Elias firmly on their side. He was already on their side. But the fact that we had more Elias interacting with the team, he's kind of set up as like a 6th Ranger for this episode. Just outstanding television. And then you had all the Shaw plot line. She's back with Team Machine now. You had the Fusco plot line, where now finally after 4.5 seasons about the Machine. And which is great because Person of Interest is one of the few shows that does this. Whenever something major like that happens, it's reflected in the opening titles.
Yeah.
Fusco's box went from white to yellow. And that he is now a primary asset of the Machine, which is great. And then the day the world went away. Speaking of episodes that turn everything on its head, Good Lord, I can't spoil anything about this one, but episode of Person of Interest. So, of course, shit goes down. Hard. Shit goes down. See, it's hard to even talk about some of these big
it's not an episode you can say much about at all. It really isn't.
The episode's called The Day the World Went Away. So the only things I could spoil about it are makes error within the first 5 minutes. Cover identity is blown. So in the 100th episode of Person of Interest, the number that comes up is finally Harold Finch. Every other character's number had come up. Fusco, at least twice. Shaw, the Machine. Finch was the only character whose number has not come up, and in this episode. So, literally, look, 3 or 4 episodes left of Person of Interest. And they chose a really, really interesting time to turn everything we know about the show on its head. I'm going to spoil it in the next episode, which is called Cynic Dosh? I'm not sure how to say that. It's a hard word
to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce it either.
Cynic Dosh. Cynic Doce? I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it means it's a figure of speech where a part of the term is used for shorthand for the whole term. the remaining members of the team get a new number, who just happens to be, of course, the President of the United States. The show is getting really, really good. Kind of expanding. I will say this, though. They said that we lost one member. Character was going to die. That was a lie. 2 characters die. This one is to kind of throw you off of the path of the major death that was going to happen on later in the episode. And even then, you're not even sure. It seemed pretty final, but you never know with this show. I will say this. If you're not watching Person of Interest, what's wrong with you? It is the best show on television, and Michael Emerson might have just got himself another Emmy nomination at the end of that episode. Heads up. And that was the best episode of television this year, probably. Especially since what? Heaven Sent Doctor Who was last year? Or was it early this year?
It was late last year. I think it was like, October, November?
Because this is probably the best hour of television since Heaven Sent. It's much better than Game of Thrones, and it's much better than Walking Dead. So, watch Person of Interest.
Is that it?
What else was there? I literally have not watched Arrow since 11:59. So many episodes behind, and I don't care. I will say this. The Flash had a really good finale. He did the one thing he was told he could not do. Get it? Barry went back and did it. Because it's the one thing he couldn't get over. We're going into the 3rd season of the show. Is it the 3rd season? 3rd season of this fucking show. And he's still hung up about that thing that happened in the prequel. So here we are. What is it with DC comic shows and heroes that just can't get over shit? Look, I understand that that thing that happened to Barry, like his mom dying, was like traumatic. It happened when he was a kid. 20-something years later, I understand it's still at the back of his head. I understand the most recent episode, a member of his family went all the way back. Everything. And now here we are again. I'm like, you didn't even show anything for season 3. Because where do we go from here? And what it is with these comic characters and not being able to get over themselves. But, and I don't mean to sound horrible, like, oh, well, Barry's mom died and still felt like, he said Iris. He finally got Iris.
All right.
You know, he was at a decent place, got his powers back, and here we are again. Up on the one thing he hung up on anymore. I'll say this: I feel like the writing has kind of fallen off on a few of these accounts. However, solid finale is kind of being like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are we still on this? Why are we still on this plot point? I don't know. Despite that, fully it'll retcon some of the shit that's happened. Like maybe he dead.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Like maybe Felicity and Oliver never get together. like never get together, and they can salvage what's left of the show.
That'd be nice.
Because here's the thing. Cannot get another season like this one. Ordinarily strong villain in Damien Dark. Extraordinarily strong villain. The team kind of was built up, and you were at a good place for the team. So one of them dies, and then Angle literally bogged the show down so much. Like, I'm pretty sure, and you know, this is the truth. Fan base left it. For the people who are still there, the Felicity thing is, it just is it's a base breaker. People are like, Felicity is the best. I love Felicity. And then you've got literally the other, at this point, about 75% of the fandom is like, you know what? This is killing it. Killing our show. And I don't mean to sound so fucking crazy about it, but it is.
It is. No, you're not crazy. It's been going on too long now. Season 3 was bad enough, but then Season 4 took it to completely different levels. When you have a major character in Laurel Lance, Black Canary, you know, basically her death becomes all about Oliver and Felicity. I mean, when it gets to that kind of level, it's just horrible writing. I'm sorry. There's no way around it.
And here's the worst part. The worst part about it is on any character. Dinah Laurel Lance.
Right.
Black Canary. And you can say as much as you want, like, our show is different than the comics, okay? Our show is different than the comics. Sure thing, you know?
Right.
But this is the other big Green Arrow character, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is it.
Right.
You killed her off. Reason. And you're like, oh, well, you know, maybe we'll hint at Felicity being the Black Canary. No, that doesn't work like that. Character. See, here's the thing. People hated Laurel in the first season.
Oh yeah, she was hard to deal with in the first season.
She was very hard to deal with in the first season, but through Katie Cassidy, probably the sheer luck on the writer's part, they somehow managed to redeem Laurel Lance character. And at the same time, Felicity, a beloved character, and just became this base-breaking... Ugh.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it wasn't so bad if not on Arrow. Type of Felicity. You killed Sarah, then you resurrected Sarah, and then you sent her off with Legends of Tomorrow.
Right.
Canonical love interest.
Yeah.
All at the altar of Felicity, and that has to end. Yeah. I'm sorry. Season 4 was a failure.
It's a shame too because all the elements were there. All of it were there. So
they had every opportunity to be good, and it was an abject. Hopefully, Flash kind of fixes it.
You would think. All right. Well, you hope. I should say. All right, so that was kind of a depressing TV highlights. It was more bashing than it was highlights, but that's, hey, like I said, there's not a whole lot of TV in the summer. All right, so from TV highlights, we go to film picks of the week. Now, again, we have our policy. I don't like to, you know, obviously we talk about films that we recommend, and I also try, at least we do, to not talk about a film until after I feel like the majority of people that probably want to see it have seen it. So I don't want to talk about any May movies because we just started June and people might be still checking them out. So I'm going to probably be the only one talking here because I've seen more movies than Mike, and I do want to recommend one movie that I've been kind of waiting on. So I'm going to be very quick about it because this movie is really kind of borderline because I get the feeling some people still haven't seen it, which is odd because it's made I think it's made about $900 million. But people still come up to me and say they haven't seen it yet. So it's kind of one of those weird cases. But the movie I'm going to carefully talk about here in this film pick segment is The Jungle Book, which is not a movie. First of all, it came out in April, so I feel like it's fair game. But again, enough people still probably haven't seen it yet. This is not a movie I was excited about. It was something that I was interested in seeing, but it wasn't something that I was like, okay, I have to go see it opening weekend or anything like that. It was there, It looked good enough. I like Jon Favreau, the director. Had a good cast to it. I figured, hey, this whatever, it's Disney, I'll go see it. My expectations were low, even though the trailers were good. My expectations were low because of what they did with Cinderella and Maleficent, and even though the reviews had said this is probably the most true capturing of a Disney classic that they've done so far in the live-action form, I wanted to see it for myself. Well, I went and saw this, again, with very low expectations, and I don't want to make it sound like that's the reason why I liked it so much, because it didn't. It wasn't just because I had low expectations. It was just a flat-out good movie, and that's what Jungle Book is a flat-out good movie. From the actors, including the actor playing Mowgli, who was outstanding. I mean, just perfect casting across the board. The voice actors, everything was just, and the visuals. I mean, if you're watching this, and this might be one you might want to see in 3D. I don't usually advocate for that, but it does make an enhancement here. Visually, it is. If this doesn't win the visual effects Oscar next year, I don't know what will. This was a visually stunning movie. Everything looks so real. Like, you literally felt like you were there. It was just, the visuals were just stunning. I couldn't get over how detailed they were. Right down to little markings on the animals. Like, I couldn't get over how striking it was. And what liberties they do take are good liberties, because it's kind of like a combination of the Disney animated movie and the actual content from the book. They had a nice little blending of it, and it works. And it's just a very good movie. Even if you're not a fan of the Jungle Book, I'd recommend it, because Jungle Book hasn't always been my favorite Disney movie. I liked it well enough, but it's not one that if it's on TV, I seek it out or anything like that. This actually made me a fan of the Jungle Book. I thought it was just a phenomenal movie. And it leaves everything in a good place for a sequel, and you could argue, well, does it need one? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it does leave some options open. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's just a fantastic movie. I'd probably say 3.5 out of 4. It's just a fantastic movie. So there you go, Jungle Book. That's the one I would pick. Now, in a couple weeks, we'll review some of the May movies, including Captain America: Civil War, which I'll probably let Mike do because he actually saw that. So, but we'll wait on that because again, those movies are still kind of being checked out and stuff. So that's my only film pick. I just want to make sure I recommend it. I've been holding off on that one. So, all right. So now we can go to the box office beat. And again, this is going to blend in with our entertainment news kind of spotlight feature deal with the whole paranoia in Hollywood. And why is there paranoia in Hollywood? It's summer movie season. It shouldn't be paranoia in Hollywood, right? Wrong. Because after last weekend, after the second straight year that big box office draws flopped Memorial Day weekend, it is now becoming apparent that Memorial Day weekend is no longer a box office juggernaut. And you could even make the argument that maybe the 4th of July weekend is no longer a box office juggernaut. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't go see movies those weekends. But you're finding in the last couple years that the holdovers do better than the movies that come out those weekends. It's an interesting kind of trend. Now, do you want to make the argument that it's more to do with the properties? it's been going on for a couple years now, so I'm not so sure it's the properties, because you see some of the movies that are out a few weeks before these holiday movie weekends do okay. So people are seeing movies. They're just not seeing what the new options are. So what were the new options this weekend that have caused this kind of chaos? Well, X-Men Apocalypse and Alice in Wonderland 2 Through the Looking Glass were those films. Now, let's put things into perspective here, okay? If you look at the weekend as a whole, okay? Whether you look at the 3-day numbers, which is Friday to Sunday, or the 4-day, Friday to Monday, all right? It's not, I mean, it's the only way it looks really, really bad is if you look at Alice Through the Looking Glass, because it did 26 million over the 26.8 million over the 3 days. X-Men did 65.7. Now, for any other weekend in the summer, you might go, for X-Men at least, that's not that bad. Now, for the 4 days, you have X-Men in at 79.8 and Alice Through the Looking Glass in at 33.5. So not much better for Alice, but quite a bit better for X-Men, which actually could be a good sign. That word of mouth kind of helped it. Also, it makes you also wonder maybe if more people went to the movies on Monday, did other things on the weekend. That kind of plays into it as well. Now, if you look at X-Men, I don't think you worry so much. It did underperform. It's probably it's probably a softer opening than Fox would have liked. Its budget's $178 million. It's already made $281.4 million. So it's not like it's going to flop here. It's already made $190 million overseas. Okay, so it's not going to flop. All right, and they're going to keep making X-Men movies. It looks bad when you see. The problem with X-Men right now is after Deadpool did what it did earlier this year, and after what X-Men Days of Future Past did a couple years ago, their standards have raised. If this were after First Class, they probably would have been ecstatic because First Class didn't do great. It did okay enough. But Days of Future Past and Deadpool for the franchise did so much better than anything that they've done that their standards were higher. And that's where I guess where it really looks negative. Otherwise, it just isn't really that bad for them. So while everybody's going crazy about Memorial Day weekend, from an X-Men perspective, I don't think I don't think you get like over the top crazy about X-Men. I don't. I really don't. Now, Alice Through the Looking Glass, I think you have reason to be concerned. Now, look, Disney's not going to bat an eyelash. Yes, they're not happy about it. They're on a hell of a winning streak this year, and even going into last year. You know what? It's one loss for them. I mean, they're not going to, it's one loss for them. But, if you look at this, I mean, it's a $170 million budget. It's made $107.2, and that's a disturbing thing. It's not even doing good overseas. It's only made $69 million overseas so far. 38.2 million here. We made 26 million over the 3 day, 33.5 over the 4. It's not doing well at all. Now, you want to go crazy and think it's a Johnny Depp thing. Them things don't factor into these that much. Okay? Honestly, I think you look at 3 things when you look at Alice Through the Looking Glass and why it did poorly. One, they waited too long. They waited too long. This movie, the first movie came out in 2010. This movie should have been out in 2013. All right, you can't use the excuse that Pirates of the Caribbean that because there haven't been a Pirates movie in a long time either, and that's what worries me more about the next Pirates movie. You make people wait too long, out of sight, out of mind. We've seen that time and time again with these franchises. You can't wait that long. So that's one thing. The second thing is, was it even necessary in the first place to do this movie? Because if you really, and I didn't realize this at the time, although, I mean, I didn't really, I thought it was okay, the first Alice in Wonderland. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. And that was a feeling shared by a lot of people that they felt like, and if you look at the trajectory of that movie, it did $1 billion, yes. But it followed the advent of Avatar. It benefited from 3D. It was Avatar and then Alice in Wonderland. It kind of carried the momentum of the 3D movement, which was huge at that point. So I think it was almost like a false narrative there. And if you look back at the reactions to that movie, the first Alice in Wonderland, they weren't that good. So I really, again, it made $1 billion. Disney's probably figuring, hey, he'll do it again. Johnny Depp's in it. What the hell? And at that point, Depp was on a winning streak. Now, not so much. And if the next Pirates movie, the fourth Pirates movie made most of its money overseas, but if the next one doesn't even do well overseas, then you can start to write off Depp's career a little bit. Because then, if he's not even going to draw overseas, then he's in trouble. I don't think you can say that after this movie, because I think there's more to it than just Johnny Depp. I also question this movie from the standpoint of the marketing approach. Yes, it was marketed to a very good extent, but not as much as I thought it would be. And I don't care if they weren't in direct competition or not. Opening this movie the same weekend as X-Men, and again, also too, so many movies out this year, from Zootopia to Jungle Book to Captain America: Civil War to now Alice Through the Looking. It's too much in a short period of time. Too much. We know about big budget movies kind of swallowing each other whole, but for the same studio that keeps swallowing its own movies whole, it's getting kind of annoying. So, you were bound to have a loser in the bunch, and it was one of the ones we didn't think would be a loser. If I was going to think of a loser in the bunch, I would think, even though I think it looks like a good movie, the BFG or Pete's Dragon. I wouldn't think it's Alice Through the Looking Glass, but ends up being that. And realistically, it's going to drop in theater counts. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming out, and it's going to drop in theater counts. So it's probably a flop. Not to the extent that the Lone Ranger was a couple years ago, but still a flop. A very expensive one. And that's where the paranoia comes in, because if you look at the last few weekends, you had Captain America: Civil War, which did very well, even though a lot of people thought it was a disappointment opening weekend. And then you had the Angry Birds movie, which some people thought underperformed a little bit. Neighbors 2, which people think underperformed. So now people are thinking, and I'm not saying there's not reason to be concerned. What I'm saying is that I think the level of concern is a little ridiculous. Yes, there have been some movies that have had softer openings than we thought. All right, but here's the thing, and we've talked about this over the years. The box office tends to balance itself out. If you have a great first half of the year where a lot of movies surprise, even do extremely good numbers, eventually you're going to have a couple weeks there that surprise you that don't do as well as you would expect. We had more movies in the first 4 months of the year do great numbers than any year and I can remember. From Deadpool to Zootopia to Jungle Book, and even though it didn't do what they thought it would do, and even though it was a crappy movie, Batman vs. Superman. And we had 5 movies between a $500 million and $1 billion in the first half of the year. Come on. That's going to pay. That's going to come. People are going to run out of money, and they're going to back off from the movie sooner or later. And maybe it's just happening now. We're heading into the summer. There's a lot of movies still left to go here. Maybe people are just picking and choosing more selectively because of the fact they saw more movies earlier in the year than they expected to. So you got to take that into account too. So from an X-Men perspective, I don't think you worry too much. I think you're a little disappointed, but Alice Through the Looking Glass is the one that I think is sending shockwaves through Hollywood. That one, I think, is the one that kind of caught. It's been building the last couple of weeks. We have a couple of smaller disappointments like Neighbors, Angry Birds, etc. Not that they're not going to make their money back. Not that they're not going to be hits. It's not as much of a hit as expected. And again, a lot of it is because people overinflated things and bought into the hype. They did that with Captain America. They did that with these movies that came out this past weekend as well. They thought, people base a lot on the previous movies, and if they do better than expected, and they base a lot on what's going on, how movies have been doing this year, and people buy into hype, and they overhype things, and when it comes in, if a movie produces more realistic numbers, then people are like, that's a disappointment. Captain America's numbers were more, that what they did in opening weekend was more realistic than what people were tossing out there. It's not that it didn't have the potential to do what some people were tossing out there, but in a lot of ways, it wasn't realistic. And there's been a lot of that in the last couple of weeks. So I think some people are just buying into the hype a little too much, and I think that that's kind of got people thinking that the box office is in a worse state than it is. And as I said, you know, it wasn't Memorial Day weekend might not have been as huge as people thought. Actually, it wasn't too bad as far as numbers go. Angry Birds didn't do too bad, 24.5 over the 3-day. Civil War, 20 million over the 3-day. Neighbors 2, 11 million over the 3-day. Jungle Book 9.5. Nice Guys 8.2. Money Monster 5.6. Those aren't bad numbers. That's over the 4-day, I should say. That's not bad. It's not horrible. It's just a little softer than expected. The holdovers all did tremendous. I think they did right about on par with what you'd expect, maybe even a little better. The 2 new releases did softer than expected. Well, X-Men did softer than expected. Alice did much worse than expected. That's the one that kind of brought everything down. It's one movie. But it happens. And as you look ahead to this weekend, normally the first weekend of June would be seen as a low kind of weekend. I mean, you usually see a movie or two, but it's not usually something that has high expectations. But that's not happening this year. There's really no breaks this year. Even forget about the summer at all this year, really. But you got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows from Paramount, opening in 4,071 theaters. Been very well promoted. Advertising been all over the place, as my co-host can attest to. It's got a $135 million budget. Megan Fox, Will Arnett, Stephen Amell. WWE wrestler Sheamus is in it. I mean, the same people and a lot of the same cast from the previous one. In addition to that, you got Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, a comedy from Universal, opening in 2,310 theaters. It's the third biggest release. Starring Andy Samberg, also, produced by Judd Apatow. R-rated. I don't expect a lot. In fact, I think it's going to kind of do badly, even though they've been trying to get some last-minute promotion in. Andy Samberg has had a little bit of trouble drawing, and it's not in a lot of theaters. So I'm not sure. And R-rated, I'm not sure how well it's going to do, how low it's going to be, because I think it's going to be pretty low, especially given all the competition. Then you have Me Before You, a romance film from Warner Brothers, opening in 2,704 theaters. That is the second biggest release this weekend, and I don't expect a lot from this movie either. Starring Emilia Clarke and Sam Claflin. $20 million budget, so evidently Warner Brothers isn't expecting a lot either. If it gets that much back, if it breaks even, they should be lucky. Really, this weekend belongs to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The question is, will it win the weekend? You know, a lot of people think that maybe X-Men will have legs, especially with how well it did on Memorial Day. There's this feeling that it might, because it didn't have the big opener. Now, see, and there's why you don't panic, because maybe it does better in its second weekend than expected. And if that's the case, it evens out. There's a feeling that X-Men could end up winning the weekend from Turtles. It's doing 4.2 million. It did 4.2 million yesterday. So you figure if it carries over and makes about 8 to 10 million on it's maybe on Friday, maybe about 12 on Saturday, it could conceivably do about 30, 40 million. A lot of people are going with Turtles about 30, 35, 40 million. So it could be a close race for first. You're going to go to X-Men or Turtles. Like I said, the other two new releases I don't see making maybe 10. If Me Before You makes 10 million, it'll be lucky. And Andy Samberg's film will be lucky if it makes 5, I think. I think X-Men's going to be between 30 and 40, I would imagine, around there. Turtles should probably be 35, 40, maybe a little more based on the way it's tracking. Could be close for first between those two. Alice in Wonderland will probably go around 15. Angry Birds, 10. And then you'll have Captain America Civil War probably around 8. That's probably what you're looking at for this weekend. Before next weekend, when you have a release that I think – a couple of releases. You got 2 big ones and actually 3 big ones, which should make for an interesting weekend. The Conjuring 2, Now You See Me 2, and Warcraft. And what's interesting – that – Now You See Me 2 is a hard movie to figure out. Conjuring will probably do, I mean, for a horror movie, I know it's got a fan base, you know, probably 15, 20 million, but because it's about it's going to kind of, the target that demographic they're going after is going to be kind of split there. Warcraft, a lot of people think could underperform. Now, if that happens, then people are really going to go crazy. But there's this general sense that it could do only 30, 40 million opening weekend. And if it does that, that's going to be seen as disappointment. And Where Does Now You See Me, dude, that's a hard movie to figure out, considering the first time around it didn't do great. It just did well enough. And again, it was just kind of a sweeper hit, which I predicted it to be that year. That's going to be a hard weekend to figure out. But 3 big releases that weekend, and one of them should take number 1, I'd imagine. So makes things interesting going into next week based on how everything's unfolded. One other thing, there is a film that's expanding its release this weekend called Love and Friendship. It's a comedy from Roadside Attractions. It'll be in 819 theaters. Starring Kate Beckinsale and Stephen Fry. It's made $4.6 million domestic. This is another one of those awards buzz kind of movies that kind of releases itself early. We haven't had too many of those this year, but check your local theater listings if you're interested in that. So that's the story as we look back at last week, look at this week. Before we get into more of the paranoia and the panic, Mike, do you have anything to add about the box office?
Alice Through the Looking Glass. I didn't see it. By its numbers. I had dinner recently, so it's like, it's all coming up. Do you know what hasn't been seen recently, though? Glass. Judging by its numbers, not everybody else saw it either. Most people went to see X-Men. This did not have a marketing thing either. If I remember, I mean, it had some marketing. It had more than Ratchet and Clank did. Then again, like an hour and a half ago, had better marketing than Ratchet and Clank did. That being said, X-Men's marketing was all over the place. X-Men was more current. Right. And that Days of Future Past came out a few years ago. People saw it. People know about it. Memories. And not only that, it had a really, really good lead-in this year with Deadpool.
Right.
Because Deadpool, I think, is taking place in this current X-Men universe. Talking about this more down the road, but there was some negative word of mouth around X-Men.
Right.
There was, and I honestly thought that it might hurt it, but it didn't. In fact, I think the negative word of mouth was, in this case, kind of over-exaggerated.
Yeah.
We did see it last night.
Yeah.
Over-exaggerated a little bit. You and I had this discussion, and I'm going to repeat some of it now. Things they could have done better. See, especially in highlighting certain characters and making them more important.
Sure. Right.
Things X-Men could have definitely have done better. The overall product, it's probably on the level of X2. It did a lot of good things. Interesting. And I think people reacted to it. It's probably not going to beat Turtles this weekend. It'll be a strong number 2. I think the word of mouth surrounding this movie was as bad. This movie was actually, it did a lot of things right, did some things wrong, but it was stronger than Alice. It really was. I'll say this, I think you're wrong, because I do think the Johnny Depp stuff hurt it. a Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. We're not going to talk about it too much, and we're not going to get into details. He said, she said. It did hurt this movie. It really did. Because, like, oh, well, Johnny Depp, no. I'm going to give that movie my money. And I think if we noticed before, the X-Men and do have a bit of a crossover audience. Because there were men and males who would go see Alice Through the Looking Glass. I mean, they had to have previously, because the first Alice in Wonderland made $1 billion. So there had to have been some crossover audience, and X-Men was coming off two very strong pieces. That both happened within 2 years. It's more current in people's minds. And I agree with your point. Glass should have come out at least 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It should have come out 3 years ago. Say Pirates was a thing. What are you going to say? Mordecai held us up. I held us up. Sorry, guys. We couldn't get Johnny on set. He was doing Black Mass. It was more important than Alice Through the Looking Glass. Should have been out a long, long time ago. And it's not like they show Alice in Wonderland a whole lot on television. When they do. They don't show the live action one that much.
No, not much at all.
Like, Disney friggin' owns 3 networks. They could show the original Alice on one of them. The live action Alice on one of them. I don't see that movie so much at all. So we've got a problem. It's the perfect storm. And honestly, Alice Through the Looking Glass probably should have waited a little bit. Probably should have waited. Maybe it was an end of summer release. Maybe it's a late July release. X-Men's a more current thing. It's not like Disney's going to be hurting over this one. They've already kind of made their... They're going to take a loss, and they're not going to be happy about it, but they're not going to be very, very hard, very, very happy about it, but they're not hurting.
Right.
It is what it is.
It's just interesting because we had such a debate going on about what we thought was going to win the weekend. You know, we thought it wasn't
that hard at all.
No, it was pretty much known after Friday. Really, because it was just a dominant performance, and you know, I've been looking at while you were talking, I was looking at some information, and X-Men is showing some good legs on the weekday numbers. So there is this feeling that it might hold up very well this weekend. So again, if it holds up, I saw a lot of people thinking it would make more than $20 million this weekend. If it does better than that, then it kind of averages out what it was expected to do last weekend. Because I think most people thought it made $10 million or so less than they thought it would make last weekend. So if it pulls in that extra 10 or 15 million, then it's right where everybody thought it would be anyway. So, I mean, it's not, like I said, you can't look at that movie and think it's all bad. And really, if you think about the negative word of mouth for that, and I'm going to use this as a bridge to get into, like I said, the Hollywood paranoia. From an X-Men perspective, I don't think there is any reason to panic. If you're Fox, I don't think you panic about that, because here's the thing. The negative word of mouth going into the movie was not from fans. I mean, there were a few fans that didn't like it, but that goes without saying with every movie like that. Most of it was coming from critics. Most of it was coming from critics. It wasn't really, it was negative word of mouth from critics. And a lot of people wondered why Fox didn't embargo it. Like, why did they lift the embargo so early? And if it didn't, it might have. I don't know if it would have made much sense. But judging by the way that people are seeing this movie, it had an okay opening on Thursday, not that great. Friday was all right. Saturday it dropped off. Sunday it dropped off. But then Monday it shot back up, and it's been doing good during the week, which makes me think that people went and saw it over the weekend, and then started telling people, you know what, like Mike just noted, it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. It's got some things wrong with it, but it's not that bad. It's not X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's not The Last Stand. It's not a bad movie. There's just things that they could have done differently. It's not Batman versus Superman. And once it started getting around that it wasn't as bad, people are coming out to see it. So it might just be like a delayed kind of thing. It's not that way with Alice in Wonderland, though. And that's where the panic's going to come from, because that was supposed to be a guaranteed $1 billion. And we talked about maybe it's oversaturation. I don't know. Now, does this mean you have to? I mean, I was reading this article on the Hollywood Reporter today about how all these studios now are worried about their movies, and it was like a case by case thing, studio by studio. Universal, has The Secret Life of Pets and the Bourne movie, Jason Bourne movie. That's all they got this year, as far as summer goes. So they're not even looking at this summer as some big deal for them. But Sony and Warner Brothers, and they all got some big things going on. They're trying to pick up from last year, which was dominated by Universal and Disney. Now, Disney's already going to be dominant this year. Universal is taking a step back. They're like, hey, last year was our year. This year's not. Most people expect Independence Day to do well at the end of this month. But you have to worry about Independence Day, and here's why. Every franchise that we've seen come back from a long period of time gone. But remember Terminator last year? They don't do so well. Independence Day's been gone for a long time. Well, unless you're Jurassic World. But let's be honest here. How much of that was probably Chris Pratt?
100%.
That was probably one of the smartest moves they could have made, is casting Chris Pratt in that movie, because I think that really allowed people to get. But I also think too, the fact that, and we talked about this last year when Jurassic World did the numbers it did, I think it helped too that there hadn't been that many there wasn't any dinosaur movies, live action dinosaur movies. Nobody, like, you think about who. I mean, yeah, don't say Godzilla, because that doesn't count. Like, who? I mean, during the time Jurassic Park was gone, who tried? Nobody. There was a lot of animated ones, but nobody tried to do a live action because they knew they could. I mean, and I know people are going to say, well, that's not true, because people always try. I honestly believe that they thought they couldn't do anything with it. I don't think they thought there was a market for it, because by the time people even started broaching the idea of doing something like that, there was always speculation that somebody was going to try. This never happened. But by the time people started doing that, the Jurassic World movie started dying off in box office earnings, so I guess people just stopped trying or stopped thinking about it. But Jurassic World's the exception, not the rule. And I think they were very smart, Independence Day and opening on the 24th. Like they're staying away from actually just opening over July 1st. Like they're giving themselves a week out of the holiday. It's probably a smart move. They feel pretty good. I know Fox said they feel pretty good about it, but I just don't know. None of the names in it are people that inspire box office confidence. I mean, if Will Smith was in it might help a little, but even Will Smith hasn't done very well of late. And also, you got to worry about if you're Finding Dory too. If you're any of these movies coming out around that time, Finding Dory is expected. The belief is that Finding Dory is going to be the second biggest box office draw of the summer. It's going to be right under Captain America. That movie's expected to make $1 billion. It's Pixar's statistically, according to a lot of the data I've been reading, apparently it's Pixar's most popular character. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what I've been reading. Nemo apparently was Pixar's most popular character, and Dory's right up there. And that's why they waited so long to make the sequel. So there's a lot of anticipation there, I think, and that's going to help that because there's anticipation. Okay, I understand that we've been talking a lot about, sometimes you can't wait that long to make a movie. But there are, like I said, there are exceptions. And I think Dory's going to end up being an exception. And if that does well, I know there's not much cross competition between that and Independence Day. Who knows? I have a lot of worry about Independence Day. That's one of the movies I was worried about coming into this summer. I have a lot of trepidation about that movie. That was the movie I thought might be the biggest flop of the summer because they put a lot of money into it. I think it's like a $250 million budget. They put a lot of money into it. So, I mean, that would probably be the movie that if I were a Hollywood exec, if at Fox, I would be worried about. X-Men's going to be fine. Disney as a studio is not going to worry about nothing because of how they've been doing this year and what they have still coming up this year. I mean, I honestly don't think that what happened. I think that the only thing that should come out of this whole thing is this. I think if you're a studio right now, you look at Memorial Day weekend and you look at 4th of July weekend and you no longer look at it as a slam dunk. The first weekend of May has become a bigger deal for movies. And I really think more or less the third week of May and the third week of June have become bigger weekends. I think those weekends have become bigger. Not so much this year, the third week of May. This didn't play out that way, but in most cases lately it has. I think those weekends have become bigger. And now we're seeing all these big movies come out in March and February. The game has changed. The game has changed. If you're going to put something on Memorial Day or July 4th weekends, make sure it's something that's going to really draw. And I think if you already see a movie there, you might want to avoid it. I don't think you can stick 2 or 3 big movies on one of those holiday weekends anymore. It's just you can't, especially if you have big movies already out there doing very well prior to that and on the heels of that. I mean, we've talked about the box office is stacked now every week, not even just during the summer, all year round. There's big movies coming out almost every weekend now. In the summer, it's like 2 or 3 a weekend almost. It's you have to really have a solid enough property to compete nowadays. And if you don't, so I don't think there should be the level of panic there is. Now, if you get to the middle part of July and outside of Finding Dory and maybe 1 or 2 other movies, nothing has really done as expected, then maybe you can start to panic a little bit. But by that point, you're already through most of the summer. But I just think it's a little too early to be like, oh my God, the sky is falling. What's going on? It's been a great year so far in earnings. I mean, you look at January, February, March, and April and how well it's done, mostly because of Disney and then, of course, Deadpool. But you look at how good it's done, you really can't complain. Captain America Civil War more than held its bargain up. I mean, not the only true, really big flop right now is Alice in Wonderland. That's the only true flop. There's going to probably be more. Warcraft could be one. Independence Day could be one. There's probably going to be more, yes. But we haven't had that yet. One flop does not a panic make. I understand, though, but if you take it just from the Memorial Day perspective, Memorial Day weekend perspective, and maybe even the 4th of July weekend perspective, especially if this year's 4th of July weekend doesn't do very well with box office earnings, then I can understand panicking about those weekends being viable anymore. And I do think that's maybe something that will carry on now from coming out of this, is that you'll see more studios avoid those weekends now. You might only see one movie come out those weekends now, because you don't want to deal with the competition. So you might see that now. That might be the repercussion. We'll see. Or they'll just think that it was just an anomaly. It was just there was some crossover in the audience and that's why it happened this year. Or the properties just weren't strong enough or something like that. Let's see how it plays out. And we get and over time, if it's again, there's more underperforming, and again, the 4th of July weekend ends up being down, and then I think there is reason for the studios kind of like, oh my God, maybe the beginning part of the year kind of drained the summer box office, But until then, I wouldn't be the level of panic, I think, is kind of absurd. Mike, before we move on, do you have anything to add?
I already said my piece.
Okay. The only entertainment news we're going to talk about, and I tried to find more, but again, most of it had to do with the box office and that panic there that's going on. The only other piece of news that I found that really that people seem to want to talk about, because I got a lot of mail about it today, was supposed casting of Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Which, if you've read the news over the last day or so, the talk is that Academy Award-winning actress, most recently Academy Award-winning actress, lead actress, Brie Larson, is in negotiations for the role. Now, a lot of people don't. There's some people that like this. Brie is a good actress. She proved that. The look isn't bad for the part. She's beautiful, obviously, and I could see it. But a lot of people are rather disappointed. There seems like a fair majority are disappointed in this choice. This is what I'm going to say about this, and I'm going to be very short and to the point because I've learned my lesson about ever taking casting news at face value. Because I've been burned a million times by this. You look at somebody and you go, "There's no way they can play this part." Blah 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 blah, and you see them in action, you're like, "Oh my God, it works." Brie Larson is a very good actress. I think from an acting standpoint, she can more than play the part. She might not end up working out. The part might end up not suiting her. I know she can play the part and bring the aspects to it. But whether you can bring stuff to it and whether you can play the part well, sometimes not all that matters. Sometimes it's how the presence you have and the way you kind of click with the material and how and how it appears on screen and everything. Those things we won't know until we see the movie. And that's if she gets the part. Again, it's early discussions. They've been I'm kind of surprised this movie has been it's been probably one of the most top secret castings they've been doing. But even if she does get the part, I will wait and see what she does with it. Because I've been burned too many times on judging something like this before seeing it. Because, again, until you see them play the part and everything kind of come together, you just don't know. So I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach and see what happens. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Captain Marvel situation here? Yeah.
I don't see it. One could be right. But I just don't see it yet.
It's not who I would think.
They're not. No. At all. Could she play the part? Absolutely. We're not saying she can't play the part.
Right.
She's not the person that would come to mind when you think Captain Marvel. Danvers. It could be a smokescreen. I am willing to bet it might be a smokescreen. Maybe there's something there. Maybe they're just getting the biggest name who looks kind of like the character. Any of these things could be true. We'll see where it goes from here. But I don't think it'll be her. I think it's just a name that came up. So.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, again, it's early discussions. Yeah, it's early discussions, and apparently they've had a number of actresses in mind. Acting standpoint, she's a great actress. It's just again, you just don't immediately think of her. No disrespect, she's a great actress, but there's a number of characters I could think of for her in the Marvel universe. It's not that one, but that's really the only thing I want to talk. And again, we don't know. It's one of those stories that we're going to see if it unfolds. I mean, it could. If it works out, then I mean, as far as negotiations go, they'll probably make a formal announcement next week because it looks. The looks of it seems like that it's not going to be that hard of a negotiation if it does happen. So, we'll see. All right, I think that's it. I think that's all we have to cover. So, I said we'd be finished a little early, And we are. So, quick score update, because I haven't done a score update tonight, which is kind of bad for me because the NBA Finals is on. It's a big deal. Game 1 of the NBA Finals is underway. Got underway shortly after 9 tonight. Golden State, Cleveland. Game 1 from the Oracle in Oakland. And right now, it is 26-24 Golden State with 30 seconds left in the first quarter. Golden State's defense has been very good in the first half. But Cleveland's got good offense, so they've been shooting the ball well, so even against good defense. So that's kind of what to say. It's a close game, and I expect this whole series to be close. So it should be a fun series. We'll talk about that on Tuesday's show. All right. So with that being said, we are done for tonight. As always, because the show is over, does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to the show. You can continue to have your voice heard. You can give us your feedback, your questions about the show and the scheduling of the show, questions or comments. About the show, reactions or comments about the show, things we talked about on the show, things we said. If you have topic ideas related to sports, entertainment, wrestling you want to see us cover, you can send those in. You can do all of these things by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Again, please feel free to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight401, hashtag ITS5. That one, of course, represents the 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast. Or you can create your own hashtag. If you're talking about wrestling, you use hashtag ITS Wrestling. Talking about, TV, hashtag ITS TV. Or you can create your own hashtag. You can create your own hashtag as long as it's not disrespectful, insulting, or offensive. That's all we ask. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 401 on Facebook and make sure you like our page upon finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling. Should there be a last-minute postponement or delay, that's the best way to get that information from us directly is on our social media feeds. Make sure you check those out and join us on there so you can get that information. If you'd like to keep up with our show, you have a couple ways in which to do that. Or look back at old episodes. You can, if you're interested in only our episodes from our run here on Google Plus and YouTube, which is everything from mid-October right up until tonight. You can find us here on Google Plus and YouTube by searching for us under our title, In the Spotlight 401. Again, search In the Spotlight 401 here on Google Plus and YouTube. And you'll have access to all the episodes we've ever done here on Google Plus and YouTube. You'll find the pages on both our show pages on both sites, and you'll have access to all the episodes we've ever done. And if you like seeing us on screen, you like the whole streaming thing, that's probably what you'd like to do. Is finding us on here. It's the easiest way to do that. So if you missed a part of an episode or want to catch an episode or miss an entire episode or want to just watch an episode again, you have that option. Or maybe you're a new fan and wants to kind of get a sense of what we're about, then that's one way to do that too. So please feel free to check us out here on Google Plus and YouTube. You could also, if you're more of a fan of audio podcasting, or maybe you're interested in older episodes of our show from beyond the last 8 or so months or 6 or so months, or whatever you want to call it, then you can check us out on our main host site, Podbean, and iTunes. Just go to both sites and search for In the Spotlight 401. Again, search for In the Spotlight 401 on both Podbean and iTunes. You'll have access to our show pages on both sites. And you'll find every episode we've ever done, not just everything from Google Plus and YouTube, but everything from back on our days on Blog Talk Radio, TalkShoe, lives in all those sites we've ever been on. All episodes are on both sites in order from the most recent date to the old. So every episode we've done over the last 5.5 years is on both iTunes and Podbean, available to you. So maybe you missed an episode, you're a long time for the old episodes, or a new fan that wants to check out old episodes from before, the last, again, 6-7 months or so. Whatever the case, you can find us on Podbean and iTunes, and that's one way in which to do it. And you can listen to us on the go as well. So you have Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, and iTunes, all ways to look back at old episodes, catch up on our show, whatever the case may be. So feel free to utilize those resources. Okay, I want to thank Mike for being here tonight, as always. Thank you, Mike.
Good night. Time for bed.
I want to thank myself for another great show, pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and your contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching, and to those that will be listening later, thank you so much for that as well. That is it for this week. I said that on Tuesday that I'd mention what we'd be doing next week. Well, Tuesday we'll be doing our normal stuff, sports, wrestling. We'll talk the NBA playoffs, NBA finals. maybe do a little more baseball stuff. Any other sports highlights we have to cover. Wrestling, we'll talk about Monday Night Raw and any other wrestling news. And then next Thursday, entertainment, box office beat, usual stuff, Film Picks TV highlights, entertainment news discussion. We're not going to do anything because I do have to work my second job next week. So I'm not going to talk about – I don't think we'll do anything special next week because we'll probably be starting later. But so please do keep in mind actually, I think Thursday we'll have a normal time. Tuesday we might start early, we might start later, probably 8:15, 8:30 on Tuesday. So keep that in mind. Probably 8:15 because I should be home earlier than I would be on a Thursday. So, and I think Thursday is a normal time show, but I'll confirm that on Tuesday. So if we do anything different, it'll probably be on Thursday next week, and I'll let you know more about that on Tuesday. I don't want to commit to it yet until I know for sure what my situation is going to be next Thursday. So I said I had Tuesday, I'd give you more information. I'm sorry I'm not really providing that, but we have to wait probably till Tuesday. I'm better off talking more about that on Tuesday when I know more. So I'll give you that more information on Thursday's show on Tuesday. But right now we'll just do our normal entertainment stuff next Thursday. As of right now, that's all we'll do. And again, on Tuesday we'll probably start maybe 15 minutes later, 8:15, 8:30. We usually start around 8:15 anyway, so nothing new there. And then Tuesday, sports and wrestling. Normal kind of deal. So keep all that in mind for next week, and I'll give you more information about next week. As far as next Thursday goes and whatnot. Again, NBA Finals Game 1 on ABC. So check that out if you're interested. Golden State, Cleveland Game 1. Should be a fun series. So make sure you tune in for that if you're interested. Okay, so with that being said, that's it. I hope you all have a great weekend and a great start to your week next week, as well as a great rest of your night. We'll see you back here for our next show this coming Tuesday night, which will be June the 7th. Broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Plus and YouTube, probably around 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, right around there. So keep that in mind. Until then, have a good night, everybody.